Welcome to Let's Run It Back, the channel where we take deep dives into the TV shows, movies, and pop culture that shaped our childhoods and beyond. Today, we're talking about a sitcom that many of us grew up with, one that started as a modest spin-off, but eventually became a cultural phenomenon before losing its way. That's right, we're diving into Family Matters. Whether you were a fan of Carl Winslow's dad jokes, Harriet's sass, or Steve Urkel's chaotic genius, Family Matters had something for everyone. But let's be honest, while this show gave us unforgettable moments, it's also one of the most famous examples of a series jumping the shark. So today we're going to explore the history of Family Matters, how it went from a heartwarming family sitcom to the Steve Urkel show, and when it all started going off the rails. Let's get into it. Family Matters premiered on September 22, 1989, as a spin-off of Perfect Strangers. If you've ever watched Perfect Strangers, you might remember Harriet Winslow, played by Jo Marie Payton, who worked as an elevator operator at the Chicago Chronicle. Harriet wasn't a major character on Perfect Strangers, but her no-nonsense personality and relatable humor made her stand out. Producers saw potential in Harriet and decided to create a series focusing on her life at home with her family. That's how Family Matters was born. The show centered around the Winslow family, a middle-class black family living in Chicago, and followed their day-to-day lives. The Winslows were a lovable but ordinary family. Harriet was a quick-witted, hard-working mom who often kept her family in check. Her husband, Carl, played by Reginald VelJohnson, was a Chicago police officer who tried to balance his demanding job with his responsibilities at home. Together, they raised 3 kids: Eddie, the confident and slightly irresponsible eldest son, Laura, the smart and ambitious middle child, and Judy, the youngest daughter, though Judy would mysteriously disappear from the show by season 4 without explanation. The family also included Carl's mother, Estelle, a loving and wise grandmother who often gave advice, and Harriet's sister, Rachel, a single mom raising her adorable son, Richie. With this ensemble cast, Family Matters had all the ingredients of a feel-good family sitcom. When it debuted, the show had decent ratings and a good mix of humor and heart. But it wasn't groundbreaking. It was just another family sitcom in an era crowded with similar shows. It wasn't bad, but it also wasn't exceptional. At least not yet. Everything changed midway through season 1 when Steve Urkel made his debut in an episode called Laura's First Date. Played by Jaleel White, Steve was introduced as the nerdy, clumsy neighbor with a hopeless crush on Laura Winslow. He was only meant to appear in 1 episode, but his impact was immediate. Audiences loved him. Urkel's over-the-top nerdiness, complete with suspenders, oversized glasses, a nasal voice, and his famous catchphrase, "Did I do that?" made him an instant hit. The writers quickly realized they had struck gold, and Urkel went from a one-off character to the breakout star of the show. Steve Urkel didn't just save Family Matters, he transformed it. Without him, the show likely wouldn't have made it past its first season. His popularity sent ratings soaring, turning Family Matters into one of ABC's top shows. Urkel even became a pop culture icon, with merchandise like a talking doll, lunchboxes, the Urkel dance, and yes, even his own cereal, Urkel O's. For a while, this shift worked. Steve Urkel brought fresh energy and humor to the series, and his antics balanced well with the Winslow family's more grounded storylines.
How could it get any worse?
However, there was a downside to Urkel's success. As the show became more focused on him, the Winslow family started to take a back seat. The early seasons had been about the Winslows' family dynamics, tackling relatable issues like sibling rivalries, teenage crushes, and Carl's struggles as a police officer. But as Urkel's popularity grew, those storylines became less and less important. By season 6, the balance between the Winslow family and Urkel's antics had started to tip. While the season still had plenty of great moments, it was clear that the show was leaning more heavily on Urkel to carry the comedy. And then came season 7. Season 7 is where the show officially jumped the shark. For those unfamiliar with the term, jumping the shark refers to the moment when a TV show takes a turn for the ridiculous, losing the essence of what made it great. For Family Matters, that moment came when the show stopped being about the Winslow family and became all about Steve Urkel and his increasingly bizarre inventions. Urkel's transformation chamber became a recurring plot device, allowing him to turn into a suave alter ego, Steve Urkel, or even Elvis. He invented a cloning machine, a teleportation device, and a time travel machine. He even created a love potion that caused chaos. Essentially, Family Matters went from being a relatable family sitcom to a sci-fi comedy. On top of that, Jaleel White started playing multiple characters, including Stefan, Myrtle Urkel, Steve's Southern Belle cousin, and even Bruce Lee-inspired versions of himself. While this was funny at first, it quickly became gimmicky and overused. By this point, the Winslow family felt like background characters in their own show. The heartfelt family moments that had once been the heart of Family Matters were now overshadowed by increasingly absurd storylines centered on Steve's inventions and alter egos.
It was unbelievable. First of all, Steve here shrunk us, then we had to sleep on bread, then we were almost killed by a cantaloupe.
And a kitty.
While Family Matters remained watchable in its later seasons, the magic of the early years was gone. The show had become so focused on Steve Urkel that it lost the charm and relatability that had originally made it a hit. Even in the 90s, fans recognized that the show's prime had passed. The early seasons of Family Matters were at their best when Urkel was a supporting character who added humor without overshadowing the Winslow family. By making him the center of the show, the writers unintentionally undermined what had made Family Matters special.
Oh, Steve! Whoa! Oh, I thought you'd be happy to see me.
Despite its decline, Family Matters is still a beloved sitcom with a lasting legacy. It remains one of the longest-running sitcoms to feature a black family, and it gave us one of the most iconic TV characters of all time in Steve Urkel. But it's also a reminder of how tricky it can be to balance creativity and popularity. Urkel saved the show in its early days, but his overexposure ultimately led to its downfall. Looking back, it's fascinating to wonder what Family Matters might have been like if it had stayed focused on the Winslow family and kept Urkel as a supporting character. Family Matters is a perfect example of how a show can evolve and sometimes lose its way. But even with its ups and downs, it remains a classic that we'll always remember fondly. Let me know in the comments. When do you think Family Matters jumped the shark? And what were your favorite episodes from the series? I'd love to see your opinions. Before we go, let me give a special thank you to our Throwback Influencer members, Mary Jarrell, Jeremy Bowen, and Revan Lockhart. If you would like to see our videos one day early and would like to support the channel, you can become a member today starting at just $2. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our nostalgia-filled dives into pop culture. Until next time, keep the nostalgia alive.
Under pressure, I just might blow.